Being understood is such a special thing because it's so rare. If you felt understood by everyone, then you would love everyone.
He is many things, a best-selling author, a former monk, the host of On Purpose, and an entrepreneur. Today, I get to ask him the questions that no one else can. My husband, Jay Shetty.
You know, very low maintenance. You didn't come with an entourage or anything. We get you, the raw, unfiltered version today, everyone.
I don't believe I deserve this. I can't believe this happened to me. And so my hard work is a way of me showing gratitude back to God and the universe for the opportunities I've been given.
People's idea of material success and spirituality not being something that you can combine. I would love to have a discussion on that.
I'm about to cry just like saying that.
Oh my
I come
gosh.
back, I'm like,
We've just started. What's your favorite podcast?
I'm actually a reader. I don't listen to podcasts.
What's your favorite podcast? I'm asking that question again. I'm Radhi Devlukia, and on my podcast, A Really Good Cry, we embrace the real, the messy, and the beautiful, providing a space for raw, unfiltered conversations that celebrate vulnerability and allow you to tune in to learn, connect, and find comfort together. I forgot to ask you, did you want a Junie? What flavor do you want?
I'll take
Before
one
we
of
start.
the decaf yuzu and pineapples.
Oh, great choice. Mine's always strawberry hibiscus.
I love the yuzu pineapple.
I know. I think I go through phases of just having one flavor every single day.
Yeah, me too.
And then I switch the next
Okay,
week. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, stagehands.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Jay Shetty, you are officially on my podcast. Honestly, professionally, I am absolutely in awe. Personally, I'm very excited because I'm going to ask you questions and you have to answer them, even though we're on camera and on audio. So I feel like I'm going to get a version of you that nobody really gets to hear. I'm very excited about it.
I'm so excited. This is the first time you're interviewing me.
I know.
Yeah.
You know what? Normally, I'm a little bit nervous when guests are coming on. And I have to say, my nerves were overridden by excitement with you coming on. So thanks for being here.
I love that.
Thank you for making the really long journey from your podcast room in your office to my podcast room in my office.
I know I didn't get greeted.
No,
No one offered me a drink.
you know, very low maintenance. You didn't come with an entourage or anything.
No one.
Just you.
Just me.
We get you, the raw, unfiltered version today, everyone. Who's ready? Because I am. You went from being a monk to leaving being a monk to being broke to dating me and still being broke to working at Accenture, which I still don't really remember what it is, but it was something to do with consulting.
That was good.
Yeah, thank you. To moving to New York to now being in LA. And I feel like the one thing
It's 11 years.
How many years?
That's in 11 years.
11
Since
years.
I left, yeah.
It's 11 years. We're completely new people in so many ways. But one thing I realized when I was thinking about you, when I was writing the questions, was the one thing that stood out most to me about you from the moment I met you to now, when I reflect back, is that your deep intention has always remained the same. From the moment I met you after you being a monk, or we started talking after you being a monk, to now, it is literally never ever changed. Your deep intention has always stayed the same. So I guess my first question for you is, what is your intention in life? What is your deep purpose and your deep intention? And the second part of it is, how do you maintain such a deep, meaningful intention and distinguish between what is and isn't part of your journey?
I'm so happy and grateful to be here as well. Watching you grow over the last 11 years has been, I don't think anything's brought me greater joy in life. I was talking about it last night. I'm about to cry just saying that.
Oh my
I
gosh.
come back, I'm like,
we've just started.
I know, literally. But yeah, watching you grow has been amazing.
Thank you.
To explain my intention, I have to explain a bit about how our Eastern tradition works and also how monk training works. And so in our tradition, our intention is very much about service.
Mm-hmm.
There are two things that come to mind when someone asks me what my intention is. And the first is to serve and please my teachers, my gurus, my guides, the people that have poured into you, invested in you, have given you all the incredible skills and qualities and attributes and abilities. Everything that you have has come from someone else. And so your first desire is to serve them and to please them. And the second is to use all of those skills, abilities, qualities, everything that you've been given in the service of others. And so my intention has always been very simple, to try to serve my teachers and guides, and then to use my nature, my skills, my abilities in the service of others.
Mm.
And it's almost this idea of like, how can you at the end of your life actually be completely empty because you gave everything, you used everything, and you left everything behind to someone else. And so you weren't trying to take anything with you, but you were actually trying to empty everything out to the last drop because you were leaving everything that you were given. Because it was never yours to keep in the first place. It was always for you to pass on to someone else. So that is my intention every day that I wake up to.
That's so nice. And I honestly can say that I feel like I've witnessed that every single day. And I've witnessed you refining that intention every single day. And one thing I always wondered, and I feel like I've never really asked you, like, how do you know what is part of this journey, what is part of your intention? Because so many things like come to us. I feel that way. Like I have so many things that come to me. And so many times I'm like, I don't really know whether it's part of my journey or not. Like, I don't know whether I should or shouldn't be doing this. I don't know whether this is the route I should be on and whether this is meeting me on the route or whether I'm going completely off course. So how do you distinguish between those things that are internally, you know, they are part of the journey, even if externally people may see them and be like, well, what is this person doing?
If you live life in the external world, you're basically looking at an activity and you're giving importance to an activity. So I'll give an example. 2 people externally could give to charity. Is their charity equal? The impact of their charity may be equal if they gave the same amount of money or same amount of time. But the intention with which they give it, which is in the invisible world, the internal world, defines the quality of that act for them karmically, and then in how it makes them feel, and ultimately how it will sustain whether they keep doing it or not. What I focus on is on the invisible world. And what I mean by that is I'm focused on why I do something more than what I'm doing. Because what I'm doing could look the same as what someone else is doing. So over the last few years, I've worked really hard. I've worked really crazy hours.
For sure.
I've put in my time. And my thought to do that was, honestly, I couldn't believe it when I got my first breakthrough from God, from the universe. And I said, from this day forward, I never want to take it for granted.
Yeah.
So my hard work has been my way of showing gratitude for the opportunities I was given. My hard work, yes, it was to achieve certain things. Yes, it was to accomplish certain goals. But really, it's come from a place of, I don't believe I deserve this. I can't believe this happened to me. I can't believe my first video went viral. I can't believe that I got to connect with so many people. I can't believe that so many people message me or stop me on the street and say, your video stopped me from committing suicide, or your video saved my marriage, or your book has helped me get over my heartbreak. When I heard those things, I thought, from this day forward, I will never, ever take for granted what I've been given. And so my hard work is a way of me showing gratitude back to God and the universe for the opportunities I've been given. No one would ever know that or see that. It just looks like you're working hard to accomplish some stuff. And so for me, I don't live in the world of what people see and what people know, because I don't think you can tell anyone's intention. Forget mine. There's loads of people in the world doing amazing things with deep intentions and you'd never see it. And so I think the way you do it first is you live in the invisible world. I think too many of us live in the external visible world. I think we live in the world which is about, what do people think of me and what is people's perception of me. And I try to live in the world of, what is my perception of me and what do the people that I look up to and admire because of their character think of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And so the other habit that I have is I call it seeds and weeds. And what I mean by that is I'm constantly trying to plant seeds in my heart and I'm trying to uproot weeds. So if I sat here and said I've never had a thought that was impure or slightly selfish or slightly personally motivated, I'd be lying. We've all had that.
Yeah.
That's natural. That's what it means to be human. So I've had all those thoughts. I'm not perfect. I have plenty of flaws.
You're not perfect.
And I try every day, every week, every month, every year to sit down and ask myself, is this spiritually motivated or is this materially motivated?
Right.
and how is it spiritual and how is it material? And that's not easy. And it's actually not that clear. And what I realized is that that activity in and of itself is the only way to hold yourself accountable.
Right.
And so sometimes the external perception can actually be a great way of checking internally. Feedback can be a beautiful thing if you use it as self-reflection, not self-dejection.
Yeah.
Right? You're not rejecting yourself. You're actually reflecting and saying, I'm using what I may be hearing or seeing as a way of reflecting and seeing where I may need to change. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And I feel like I've definitely seen you refine that intention over and over again. And it's been incredible to watch, but I don't think I'd ever asked you how you actually do it in your mind. Like, I see the gratitude every single day. I see that you're so thankful. Even when something goes wrong, you're like, yeah, but I'm just so grateful for this life. Like, this life is amazing. And regardless of whether it's this or that, like, you're always very grateful for it. And I guess, now it makes sense that you're just linking it to, this is how I can repay the people that have given to me, how I can even repay them. And actually, if you think about it, when you were saying that, what I thought about was the concept of what I've spoken about before, about preparing for your blessings. And it reminded me of that, because I feel like the preparation is getting ready to do the hard work. And then once you receive the blessings, are you actually ready to hold them, harness them, utilize them, and carry them with you for as long as you want to have them? Because there's one thing about receiving blessings. You may do good things. You receive the blessings you want. You receive the things that you want in your life. But that's just the beginning. Like, the rest of it is, what can I do to keep purifying myself and to keep nourishing myself and doing the things to be worthy of it for a longer period of time, not just in that instant moment where I received it. And so I thought that was really beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. You thought you were going to come on here and I was going to interview you as like your wife. No, I'm interviewing you as a student and a fan and someone who has many questions for you that I realized I hadn't asked over these past years of knowing you.
Whenever I'm with you, though, I'm already in my heart. So it's a very different conversation.
I know. That's why I'm really excited. I feel like I'm going to be able to get things out that I've been wanting to for a while. How have you always known what you wanted to do? Because from the moment I met you, even though you had no idea where your life was going to go, it was so interesting to me that you were, I don't mean to say this in a rude way, but like, you were a bit of a bum. Like, you weren't a bum in terms of, I don't mean it in like a rude way, but like technically to the outside world, whether it was like some of my family members or, if you met people in a professional manner, they'd be like, what were you doing for the last whatever many years? Oh, I was trained to be a monk. To them, it's like, I was just not working. And then you come out, and literally from the moment you came out, you were trying to find a job straight away. You were like tutoring. You were doing so many things to get yourself back on your feet. But did you always know what you wanted to do? And how did you come to the conclusion of what you wanted to do? Like, how you were going to channel everything you just said, your intention, into the actions that you actually decided to make them into?
I was lucky that I tried a lot of things out when I was young. So when I was 14, I became a paper boy. And I would stack papers and deliver papers down my streets and the streets around my area.
Yeah.
And I think I used to get around like £3 per street.
Yeah.
And so I was like, the more streets I do, the more money I can make. And so I used to do like 5 streets to get £15. And I'd use £10 of that to top up my phone. Now, anyone who's not old enough to understand what a top up is, it's basically when you had to pay to make calls.
Yeah.
So you didn't get unlimited minutes on a contract. You paid £10 and you got £10 worth of calls.
And unlimited texts.
And unlimited texts, maybe. I don't even know, but I don't think so. Not even then, And so there was this idea of like, I'd been a paper boy. So what does that mean? It meant I had to have a good relationship with the person who owned the paper. I had to make sure I did my job on time. And then I had to report. And I had to plan my time out after school or before school to do that.
Yeah.
Then a few years later, I worked at Morrison's. Morrison's is the equivalent of Walmart or something similar to that. There I got an understanding and learning of like what it felt like to be in the warehouse, to stack shelves, to realize how clumsy I was when I spilt too many bottles of wine, which were probably too expensive, and having to stack them back up, and what it felt like to work at a supermarket, and how, hey, if I worked on a Sunday, I got paid time and a half, or if I worked on a bank holiday or a day off, I got double pay. And so you start learning about how it works. And then later on, I worked in retail. I worked at River Island. I was working in a retail store. I was selling denim. And I remember my official title was like denim expert or something like that. And I was selling denim and I understood how River Island. So I was just very, very lucky that I started working very, very young. And I remember doing some incredible work experience at this events company that would organize these incredible events and exhibitions at the Business Design Center in London.
I don't think I knew you did that.
It was the first time I had to do cold calling. So I'd get a list of 300 companies linked to that exhibition. It could be a bikes company, a car company, whatever. And I'd have to literally call these people that I didn't know. I was like 16 years old. And I'd have to sell them exhibition space.
Wow.
And I remember people teaching me how to do that and what that looked like. And literally out of the 300 people you called, 294 were going to reject you. So I got really good at dealing with rejection and understanding that failure was the journey to success. And so I look at all of that as such great exposure so early on to everything from sales to customer service to marketing to business to stacking shelves. I've done every part of the journey. And then finally, after I met Gauranga Prabhu, my monk teacher, who inspired me by his example because he would study the scriptures so deeply.
He's a legend.
Yeah, and you love him now, which makes me so happy.
I love him so much.
And you watch how he studies the scriptures and how he presents them in this really innovative, accessible, practical way. And seeing that, I was just like, I love that. Like, that's what I'd love to do. And so then I started spending lots of time studying spiritual texts, studying Eastern philosophy, reading books about psychology and science and everything else, and trying to find the juxtaposition and where they fit. And so if I'm honestly being completely truthful, I didn't ever try to find the thing I loved. I just did a lot of things. And then once you've done a lot of things, what you're actually doing is you're collecting and connecting ideas. And I think most of us don't have enough collection to connect enough. And so I've been exposed to so many different roles, so many different jobs, so many different things. And I was never there going, God, I hate being a paper boy. Why am I doing this? Oh, I hate being at Morrison's. Why am I doing this? Oh, I hate being in retail. Why am I doing this? That was never what I was saying. What I was saying is, what can I learn from this? What skill did I pick up from this? What's a value? What's a example? What's a case study that I can take from this? And so by the time I met you, the reason I knew what I wanted to do was because for so long, I'd been collecting and connecting ideas. And I really believe today that I wouldn't be able to do what I do if I hadn't been a monk, if I hadn't worked at Accenture, if I hadn't been a paperboy, if I hadn't worked in retail, if I hadn't worked at a grocery store. I am who I am because of the sum total of all of my experiences. And I think often we're looking for that one thing that we are. And the truth is, none of us are one thing. All of us are so many more things. And so if everyone's in a job right now and they hate it, or if anyone's in a role right now and they don't like it, or if anyone's in a position and they're just like, I can't wait to get out of here, I encourage you to ask yourself, what can I learn from this? What can I take from this experience that could be useful in my next phase, rather than how do I get out of this situation? Because I promise you, in everything you're trying to avoid, there's something that you need to build the future you. And that's what you're trying to chase, and that's what you're after.
I feel like when I was really young and I made the decision of what I wanted to be, I didn't even think about whether who I was suited to what I thought I wanted to be. So let's say I want to be a pediatrician. I want to be a children's doctor. So I see a children's doctor and I'm like, oh, that means I have to think like this, do this, be really good at this, look like this, whatever it is. You create this form of what you believe that looks like. So then instead of leaning into your strengths, your skills, learning what they even are, you tell yourself that's what you have to do. And if you don't do that, and you don't have the skills for that, then you're failing. And so I feel like most of us do that the wrong way around. Because for me now, if I look back, my skills actually, and the way that I think, as much as I love caring for people, it really wasn't suited to being a doctor. Like that was not actually what I was supposed to do, which is why I'm not doing it. But I also think because I kept thinking that was what I had to do and what I wanted to do, my whole life I kept thinking, oh, I've just failed. Like, I didn't do the thing I said I was going to do. So everything else, I was like, oh, I just did a dietitian degree because my mom told me I should do it. And I just did this degree because what else was I going to do? And I just went to this college because they're the only ones who took me. So everything that I was doing, it was coming from a place of failure from before I'd even figured out who I was or what I was good at. And so what you said makes so much sense. Like gain the experience, collect the experience to then see what you're best suited to, like to really channel those things into the right thing. And then I imagine it kind of comes to you. And when it comes to you, you have way more alignment in yourself to know that's it. Like that is, I believe whatever this opportunity has come to me, that is what I'm supposed to do because I've done all this work beforehand to show me that this is the path and this is the route.
Yeah, and also I don't think it's an activity. Like I don't think it's a job title.
No.
I think that's the mistake. Like
Right.
I always struggle with the question when someone says, so what are you? And
yeah, what are you?
I don't like to say I'm just an author because I'm a podcaster. I don't like to just say I'm a podcaster because I'm also a coach. I don't like to just say I'm a coach because I'm also whatever it may be. And the truth is, if someone asks me who I actually am, I'm someone who wants to help people find their purpose. Mm-hmm. That's who I am.
In whatever vessel
in
or
whatever way that
yeah.
gets talked about. So I may write a book about that. I may record a podcast about it. I may coach someone on it. But so you're not ever defined by your job title. And I think that's the mistake. We're looking for the ideal job. There is no ideal job. We're looking for the ideal title. There is no ideal title. We're looking for the ideal role. There is no ideal role. There's only a deep sense of this is what I'm trying to do. And I'm infusing my job, infusing my role, infusing my title with that. And so I think I would discourage people from finding the thing they love or the one thing, because I don't think it is one thing.
Right.
And I think it's healthier when it's evolving and you're just learning and growing. And as humans, we have this addiction to certainty and finding something like the one thing. Like we're like, I want to find the one, whether it comes to relationships. I want to find the one, whether it comes to jobs. I want to find the one to do what I love. And the truth is, life is more about what am I willing to work towards? What am I willing to put effort into? Mm-hmm. What do I want to grow into? It's not, this is it, I found it, I'm done. And so I would discourage people to think like that because I think it creates an unhealthy mindset.
Next time someone says, what are you or who are you? Just be like, I'm complex. That should basically be the end of the sentence.
Got it.
I'm a complex human.
Yeah, you could pull that out.
Yeah. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to move on to was your emotional availability, because I feel like, whether it's from our culture, whether it is the expectations of a man being less emotionally available, whatever those thoughts are, I definitely grew up thinking that. And then my experiences of people generally were that, there was a big difference between a man's emotions and a woman's emotions. Like men are not emotionally available, women are emotionally available. Like that's how the split was in my mind. How did you unlock the ability to be emotionally available? Because you're like that with your friends. You're like that with your partner. You're like that with your family. You're like that with, you wear your heart on your sleeve a lot. And it's literally just who you are. You will tell your friends how much you love them. You will remember to message them and be like, I just want you to know that I'm thinking about you. Like you are emotionally available to me every single day. You really do share your emotions a lot. And so one, have you been like that from a young age? And two, what do you think molded that and allowed you to come into that ability to just wear your heart on your sleeve?
I think it developed from being very emotionally available for my parents. And so my parents, I don't even think they knew what therapy was growing up.
Yeah, of course.
And so they came to me ever since I was a kid. And a lot of people
the oldest child. You being the oldest child, yeah.
And a lot of people look at that as like, oh my God, you didn't have a childhood. And I look at it as like the best training for adulthood. Mm-hmm. I had a great childhood in the sense of I have some good memories, I have some bad memories, I have some great experiences, I have some tough experiences. And my life's so wonderful today that I don't actually look at that as a negative thing. I look at it as an experience that molded who I am today. Mm-hmm. And so I had to be so emotionally available to both my parents, to hear them out, to mediate, to see how they felt, to see what they were going through. Doing it for my sister too, who's younger than me. It's the role I've always played. But what I found is that when I became spiritual, my monk teachers had the greatest ocean of capacity. So what happened was you're a little river trying to carry lots of different things, but then you're being carried by an ocean. So you're You're like a river to the sea, as our beautiful friend Janavi's
Johnny.
album is called. So you're a river, but then your teachers are the ocean, and they're able to hold so much. And so you're able to hold a little bit as well because they're holding you. That is what humanity is meant to be, is that you're held and then you hold others. And then they feel held and then they hold others. And so I think it would have been unhealthy if I never found where I was held. But I feel so deeply held by my guru and my teachers. And I find them to be such a abundant vessel, expansive vessel of mercy and of blessings, that I feel I have an incredible capacity to hold others. And it's not something I feel like I carry in a way that weighs me down.
No.
Because I don't believe I'm doing the carrying. I think the challenge is we think we have to fix people, and actually we have to love them while they fix themselves. And when you think you have to fix them because you think they're broken, you're now taking all of that responsibility. And so now when they don't change, you're triggered. But when you can love someone and hold space for them and provide compassion for them in their transformation, now you're not carrying it. Now you realize it is their journey. It's not your journey. And so I don't feel a pressure to carry other people's weight. I don't feel weighed down by other people's weight. I feel like I'm allowing them to be who they are, to evolve at their pace in their own time, the way they want to grow. And I don't have any expectation or obligation for them, just as my teachers don't have any expectation or obligation for me. I don't want to be led by someone who's forcing me to be someone. I don't want to be led by someone who's judging me to be someone. And so I don't want to force someone or judge someone or criticize someone or compare someone either. And so for me, I think it came from having had a lot of practice when I was young. And I'm really grateful for that skill because I like being that person. And I think you also know this, I'm also very good at setting boundaries.
Yeah.
So it's not like I feel overstretched or overwhelmed by holding other people's space, because if I don't feel like I want to, I will happily step out and distance myself. So I don't see it as me feeling like I'm this people pleaser wanting to be there for everyone. It isn't that I don't identify with that, because I will gladly step out and bow out and put my hands up and say, I don't think I can do this. And so I think it's something that I have a healthy relationship with. It's not like I'm trying to overly sacrifice myself. And I think there was a time when I probably did have compassion fatigue. And I think a lot of people experience compassion fatigue because we're trying to fix people, not love them. We're trying to solve people's problems, not hear them out. We're trying to save people, not hold their hand. And I think for me, I'm not trying to fix, save, or solve for anyone. Because I can't, no one can, only they can. I'm just trying to be their friend as they figure it out.
So that's one side of it. That's how you are with other people. But how do you feel as if there are people who find it really difficult to give out emotion? So there's one thing about helping people and being there for other people. But really, what I'm asking is like, how does someone become so okay with sharing their heart with other people? So for you, how are you so emotionally available to people? So number one, how can someone who really struggles with sharing their emotions with people, do you have any tips of like, what did you do through your life to do that? Because, you know, do you feel like you came from people who were emotionally available? Like, would you say that your parents were overtly emotionally available?
My mom was.
Your mom definitely was.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times you end up taking on their nature. So I feel like you definitely have that from your mom, but maybe, I don't know whether your dad was very emotionally available growing up.
Probably
but
not, yeah.
But I think, and that's a very natural thing in our culture for like the parents to be, they'll provide, but they're not necessarily, the dad will provide, but not necessarily saying, I love you all the time, or like telling you how they feel about things.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily grow up with the nature of that. So for people who find it hard to share emotions, were there any tools and techniques that helped you? And then another question is, for people looking for emotionally available people, how does that look? Like, how do you distinguish that? And how do you seek that in someone?
I have to give my mom credit because I feel
know.
like my mom,
So sweet.
my mom's love was and has been always a shield. I've never questioned whether I'm lovable because my mom's loved me so deeply. And that's a beautiful thing mothers can do for their kids.
For sure.
I think your parents are
Nothing
like
like it.
I think there's that very stable foundation of a healthy attachment style.
Yeah.
With my mum. I've just realized that life's too short.
Mm-hmm.
If you care about someone and you want them to know, tell them.
I know.
If you love someone, tell them.
Yeah.
If you believe in someone, tell them.
Yeah.
Because I don't know when my last experience will be
with that person.
I never want to feel. I think my tool or technique is I don't like regrets.
Yes.
I don't believe in regrets. I don't subscribe to regrets. I don't like the idea that my future self may regret something I did or didn't do.
I think I mentioned to you, I was like, don't you get worried about being too much sometimes? Like, don't you get worried about sending that message to a stranger, not a stranger, but someone that you've met like once or twice, and you're telling them how happy you are to have met them, or, you know, really, really sharing your heart with them and truly saying how you feel. And I remember you saying like, no, I actually don't have any thoughts like that, because I'm saying what's truly in my heart. Like, I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just being honest. And the tool of just like, I have regrets. Obviously, we all do. Like, there are things I wish I didn't do. There's so many things, of course. But I don't want to keep creating those.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing you'll ever regret in life is not telling someone how you felt about them, and that you believed in them, and that you saw something in them, and that you loved them. And I think I look at it as, I want to do for others what I wished people did for me.
Right.
There have been times in my life where I think someone could have been more loving, where someone could have been more encouraging, where someone could have believed in me a little bit more. And if I want to live in that world, I've got to be the person doing those things.
For sure.
And so I can either sit here and say, I wish someone told me they believed in me. By the way, I barely heard that when I was young.
Yeah.
I could sit here and say, I wish someone told me that, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that that's healthy. I feel that creates more bitterness in my heart.
For sure.
And I don't want to live with resentment and bitterness in my heart. And so in order to make my heart a place that I want to live, I have to create that space myself.
Yeah.
And so for me, being able to give to others what I never got has made my heart better and helped other people.
Yeah.
And so I just want to live in a home. It's almost like saying, like, if someone comes into your house and messes it up, do you just leave it messy?
Yeah.
Because you're just mad at it? Or do you clean it up because you want your place to be clean?
That's so true.
And so if someone came and messed up my mindset or didn't say the right thing, I can either sit here and just sit there and sit in the mess, or I can solve it because I don't want to live in that space.
Get your broom out.
Yeah. And so, get your broom out. So I think that's the first part.
I also just wanted to add there that, you know, when you were talking about being expansive in nature, and that's the ability when you're doing the river to the sea and the ability to just give expansively, I would say that, I mean, I met some of your teachers, you know, Radhi Swami and Gauranga Prabhu, they just all have.
Your teachers now.
And my teachers. I think it was the first time I experienced what it would feel like and understood what it would feel like to not be jealous. And the reason I say that is because I remember Radhi Swami I would meet him and his energy was like, oh, this person loves me so much. But then I'd also see him with like other people and I'd be like, God, he loves them so much. And I was like, wait, he just met this stranger and he loves them so much. And what it made me realize was, when you have unlimited capacity, when you have decided to be a full vessel of what life brings and a full vessel of God, the expansiveness of that is unlimited, which means you may get physically tired, but you never get depleted emotionally because you are constantly pouring into other people, but somehow they constantly have this charge coming in towards them. So that meant, and I realized that when he is being so loving to one person, he has just as much left for the other person and just as much left for the person after that. And that is when I realized, because at first I'd be like, wait, but he really liked my pumpkin pie. But like now I cook for Radhi Swami a lot. And so it's like kind of part of our relationship now. And then someone else made pumpkin pie. They'd be like, this pumpkin pie is amazing. I was like, what do you mean? But he truly means it because he has that heart that is so expansive. And so to have watched that, I've seen way smaller glimpses than you have of that. But I imagine once you experience somebody like that, it's just beyond, like, you can't help but want to be like that.
Yeah.
So a question on that, because we talked about mentors. I think people find it really hard to find mentors in their life. They find it so hard to find people to look up to and turn to. And so, you know, I've noticed with you, you really do connect to a lot of people throughout your life. And you're the type of person, Jay's the type of person who, whether it is his art teacher from school, you still remember them. Yeah. Whether it is your mentor that took you from like Accenture, you still go back and you see them. Like, you have remained grateful and connected to your teachers from when you were at school up till now. And so how do people, one, have mentors at an older age? If they're past all of that, they haven't stayed in touch with them. What's the process of finding a mentor? And like, how do people do that?
I think mentors, when you become an adult, it gets harder,
right?
Unless you find a coach,
right?
Or you have a therapist,
right?
And you build a professional relationship out of it, which I highly recommend. I do that.
Yeah, you
I
really
have coaches, and I think it's a really important investment. But let's say that's not your path. I believe the goal is to be mentored by people you've never met, and I think we live at a time when you can feel mentored by people through reading about their life. You can be mentored by people by watching their documentary.
Right.
You can be mentored by people by studying how they made certain decisions. We have so much access today to a plethora of information about people's lives and decisions and challenges and failures and stresses that you can be mentored by deep study. And we believe this in our philosophy too,
sure.
that we talk about our teachers who are no longer here, that me and you have never met, but you still feel their presence in your life. And in the Vedic tradition, there are two words that are very important. One is vapu and one is vani. Vapu means the physical presence of a mentor.
Yeah.
Vani means the wisdom of a mentor. And we believe that the vani, the wisdom of a mentor, i.e. the written word, the listened word, whatever it may be, is actually even more important than the physical presence of a mentor. So I think today we kind of feel like, oh, I wish I could be close to this person and they'd mentor me and they'd guide me. And that's great. If you can do that, that's brilliant. But for most of us, picking up a book, listening to a podcast, studying someone's life is sometimes going to be the deepest bond you'll ever build with someone.
Yeah.
And I feel really connected to people that I've never met in my entire life through books. And so I think books are underestimated. Now, if you're looking for a physical mentor, I think the first thing you have to realize is there are certain people who are happy to mentor and they exist.
Right.
You need to turn up at those events.
Right.
You need to go and meet them. You need to go put yourself in front of them. But mentors also want to see accountability. I think with me and my mentors, what they always rewarded was that I was ready to take their advice. I was ready to put into action what they said.
Yeah.
And when they saw growth, they invested more.
Right.
I was talking to someone recently, actually, on my podcast. Her name's Cody Sanchez.
Yeah.
And Cody was talking about how when she wanted a mentor, she'd get their information and she'd update them on anything she heard them say anywhere and how things were going for her.
Interesting.
So if she heard someone at a talk and that person said, hey, you should start an Instagram account, for example, she would start an Instagram account. After she got the details, she'd message them and be like, I loved your talk. I started an Instagram account, as you said. I've been posting every day. And that person may or may not respond. Now, 3 months later, she's like, I posted every day just like you said, and I've got X amount of followers now. And I just wanted to let you know. Maybe they do respond, maybe they don't. The third time she'd update them again and say like, oh, you know what? I just started my first business. Now this person responds and goes, congratulations, that's amazing.
Oh my God.
And so she held herself accountable to that person. And now those people are in her lives. And I love that example because I thought it's you not saying, well, how much do you have to give to me? Invest in me, build me. It's no, I'm going to show you that I take your advice seriously and I'm going to let you know and our relationship's going to develop in the background. So I love that piece of advice.
That's so cool that she did that.
Really cool.
You also touched on boundaries, something I struggle with a bit. And I feel like lots of people struggle with. And what I've seen you do is be able to help people, whether it's people you're very close to or sometimes people who aren't. But the people that you're close to, you're able to help them, but not feel like you have to fix them. And I think that that's a really difficult line that I struggle with, of what is then helping and what is then overstepping. How have you learned to create boundaries? What's the mindset behind it? And how can someone be okay with other people in their life feeling pain and not trying to constantly fix it?
I wrote about this idea that I share in Think Like a Monk, which I call radius of care. So if you think about a radius, how far you are from someone. And so sometimes you can help someone by being really close to them and being really close to the problem. And sometimes you can help someone by not being involved. And what I realize is that, I mean, you've been talking about this a lot lately, but what I realize is that we live in a illusion that if I solve this for someone else, it solves the problem. Not realizing that you're taking away their skills and the muscles they need to grow. It's like me saying, or actually you saying, because you're stronger than me, but it's like you saying, I'll lift your weights for you. I'll run your miles for you today. Don't worry about it. I'll meditate for you today.
I'll say yes.
Right. But it doesn't help. Like how would that ever transfer?
No,
like your meditation, sure, you can send energy, sure. But your meditation doesn't transfer into someone else's calmness. You running on a treadmill doesn't transfer into someone else's fitness.
Someone should create that.
Your weightlifting doesn't transform into someone else's strength. It doesn't transfer or transform.
No, for sure.
So then why would you, doing everything else for someone else, cause them to grow? So then the real question is, do you want to help them? Or do you want to feel like you're helping
Control them.
And most of us want to feel like we're helping people rather than actually help them. So sometimes the hardest thing is to receive a call from someone you love and say to them, I'm not going to get involved. Not because I don't love you, but because actually if I get involved, it's going to take away the exact thing and step you need to take in this situation in order to make this a long-term benefit. And that isn't a cop-out. That's not me saying I'm stepping away because I don't want any responsibility. This isn't an excuse to get away from offering help and helping your friends.
Which if you love someone, you want to anyway.
Exactly. It's actually saying, I love you so much that this is the right decision. Now, if someone right out asks you for help and be like, I need you to do this, sure, maybe you will step in. But I think often it's about having that healthy conversation with them and asking them, what will actually solve this problem, right? Like what will actually create a long-term harmony to this challenge that they have? And to me, that's the best way to set boundaries, because I think often people think of boundaries as like, I've said it, that's it now. And that's not how I think about it.
And you think of boundaries as also being set for you. Like you think that a lot of the times when you think of boundaries, it's like I'm setting this boundary because it's going to protect me. But you never think about I'm going to set this boundary to protect the other person. I'm going to set this boundary to help the other person. Like boundaries always seem like a selfish thing. Or not, I wouldn't say selfish, but it's for yourself. You're setting them to protect yourself. But like, I just realized you could also be setting boundaries from what you said to protect other people. Let me not overstep. Let me not overhelp. Let me not oversay so that they can't come to the conclusion for themselves. And, you know, you really did that for me in the beginning of our relationship, because I felt like I was pretty lost about a lot of things, especially when we moved to New York. And, you know, I really didn't know what I was going to be doing. And for a lot of people, when they end up in relationships with somebody like that, especially if you're the person that's a little bit more stable, but if you're stable in what you want to do, but you're still a little bit emotionally immature, you could easily end up being an enabler or expecting that person who's a little bit weaker in the relationship. You're like, great, this is my opportunity to make her fully dependent on me. Like, and that's happened a lot.
Even subconsciously,
like, okay, if she's a damsel in distress, which I wasn't, but like, let's just call myself a damsel in distress then. I'm never a damsel in distress.
If I was an independent woman.
I'm an independent woman. But let's say I was a damsel in distress then. You had a choice then.
She's an independent woman, but still loves to stay with her mum when she's in London.
Suspect does. Let's say I'm an independent. Let's say I'm damsel in distress, and you have the opportunity to be the knight in shining armor. Who wouldn't take that opportunity? But you, annoyingly, at the time, I was very annoyed by this. I would ask you every single question. I would try and get you to make decisions for me, and you'd be like, "No, I'm not doing it. I'm not making that decision for you. I'm not telling you what you should do. I'm not picking your Instagram caption for you." Whatever, no, that's a joke. But like whatever it was, you really made me come to the conclusion myself. You made me make the decision myself. And I think I was in the habit of, with my family, always turning to them for help. And naturally, out of love, they would always help me. But that didn't help me create a version of me that I trusted. And so you didn't take advantage of that. And I think that was very interesting for me to reflect back on, because you really could have become a crutch for me, but you didn't allow yourself to do that. Like you were like, no, create your own life, do your own thing. After that, I was thinking about how from the beginning of our relationship, you've always been like, you do what you love doing, I'll do what I love doing. And of course, we want to do things together, but you will never sacrifice what you want to do, and I will never sacrifice what I want to do. How do you think people can create this independence in a world where I'd say relationships are shown to be this constant intertwinement of every part of your life? Like every person, whether you're watching on movies, whatever you're doing, it's like the expectation is you do everything together, you sacrifice in inverted commas for the other person, and everything is kind of like a give and take in that way. What would you say the healthy way of actually creating that independence is, but not be bitter?
I think most people, when they get into a relationship, they don't know themselves. And that's okay.
I did not.
And what happens is the person who knows themselves slightly better, the person who doesn't know themselves starts following that person.
Yeah, for sure.
And then 5 years later goes, well, I've just been following you. Why did you make me do that? And the person's like, I didn't. I just knew which direction I was going in. Really, it starts with everyone taking ownership of their own life and saying, is this what I want to do? Is this what brings me joy?
Yeah.
Is this what I want to focus on? Because otherwise you naturally will follow the person who has a tiny bit of direction.
Totally.
And then I've seen this, and this is why I didn't do it with you. I was so lucky to spend time with couples who were in their 50s and 60s as part of my work.
Yeah.
And I just constantly saw, especially women who had sacrificed their passion for the man's passion.
Yeah.
And in their 20s, it was fine. In their 30s, it was fine. In their 40s, it was fine. But when they turned 50 and the kids left, and that was usually the mark where they realized it, they now felt they'd sacrificed their purpose and their partner had gone on to achieve all of his goals.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be in a position ever with you that you would feel I achieved all of my goals.
Yeah.
And that you didn't achieve yours. How would that be fair on either of us? And even if it felt easy for 30 years, I don't want you to feel that when you're 50 years old.
Yeah.
And so I really believe that if anyone wants a healthy relationship, doesn't matter what gender you are, doesn't matter what type of relationship you're in, you want your partner to pursue their goals.
Yeah.
And you want to pursue your own, because you don't want your partner to ever say to you, I didn't achieve or become who I could be because of you. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of us think we'd rather our partner become who we want them to be because that's easier and more comfortable than become who they want to be. But the problem is when they become who we want them to be, they are so sad because they didn't become the person they were destined to be. And now you've taken away everything you love about them. I think actually this is at the core of it. The thing that your partner wants to pursue is what makes them attractive. That's what you fell in love with.
Right.
Like that's what makes them who they are. I always say this, like the way you've loved your family, the way they've loved you, it's what made you the person that I love.
Yeah.
So if I want you to change that, I'm actually taking away your superpower. It's like you saying to me, I don't want you to be ambitious anymore. I don't want you to be driven anymore. I would be sad, unattractive, potentially
you wouldn't
depressed.
be yourself.
I wouldn't be who I am.
Yeah.
So you're taking away your partner's superpower by saying, stop doing that, start doing this.
Yeah.
I want you to do this thing that I want to do, that I think's important. Now, when it comes to health, that could be true.
Yeah.
When it comes to mental health, that could be true. There are certain habits where that's really healthy. Like when you would say to me, you would always say to me like, oh, you're so mentally sharp, but imagine how sharp you'd be if you worked out more. Like you'd say that to me.
Yeah.
And I'd always be like, yeah, right now I don't have time. I just got to figure this out. And now as someone who works out a lot, I fully agree with you. You are spot on. So there are those kind of things that we should be open to changing and learning.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at your core personality and your core trait, and the point is if you're trying to change someone, you don't want to be with them.
Right.
You want to be with the type of person you're trying to change them to.
Yeah.
So go find that person. Don't try and mold your person into that person.
Yeah, it's so true. I feel like people get really trapped in that idea, the idea of sacrifice having to be part of a relationship. I'm imagining you talk about this in your second book. Obviously, I've read it. You talk about that?
I do.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I must have just missed that chapter. So, whenever you go through hard times, whether there's ups and downs, as everybody does, ups and downs in life, I feel like you've always repeated this one thing to me and it's always stayed with me. It's just purification and part of the journey. No matter what it is in your life, professionally, personally, everything, it's just purification. It's just part of the journey. And it's something that I have really turned to whenever I felt like I've gone through hard times, because I think it's so easy to get into this like, why me mentality. And like, I don't think I've ever heard you say, why me? Why has this happened to me? Oh, whether it's a small thing of like, oh, why did this person park in front of me or block me, to why did this horrible thing happen in my life that wasn't meant to? Like, there's never been a point in time where I've heard you say, why me, the whole time I've known you. I guess my question is, how do we get out of this idea of like this victim mentality of feeling like when bad things happen, the first thing you think is, why me? Like, why did this happen to me? This is horrible. How did you work through that? And like, have you had those thoughts? How do you then get to the point where you're just like, no, it's just purification. This is just what I have to go through.
Life is a school, a hospital, and a mountain. Life is a school because it's a place to learn. Life is a hospital because it's a place to heal. And life is a mountain because it's a place to grow. Life is not a cinema.
Roses and daisies on a field.
It isn't.
Filled with daffodils.
So if you look at the purpose of life, and if the purpose of life is to learn, grow, and heal, then you have to look at everything that comes your way as either helping you learn, either helping you heal, or either helping you grow. And sometimes some things make you do all three at the same time. And so for me, when I say life is about purification, it's me accepting and admitting to myself that there is something I can learn from this. There is something I have to heal from this. And there is some way in which I have to grow from this. This could have been sent to me to break my ego. This could have been sent to me to heal my heart. This could have been sent to me to push me towards my higher self.
Right.
And I feel like I've lived through enough different ups and downs now where I can identify all of those. The worst things that have ever happened to me have been some of the best things that have ever happened to me. And that is the hardest thing to say.
In the moment.
And I didn't feel it in the moment, but I had to recognize it in the moment. And I would honestly say that there are people on the planet who've been through way harder things than I have, and they feel that way. So don't trust me because of my experience. I trust those people who've been through the most atrocious, horrific events on planet Earth, and they're saying that. So don't take my word for it, take their word for it. And so what I'm trying to say is that our pain, most of our pain in what we're going through is actually caused from our resistance to it.
Right.
So when we don't want it to be the case.
It's almost like the struggle that you have to close the door versus just letting it open and allowing the water to come through. You could be swimming into it versus the resistance it takes to keep that door closed against the water coming in.
Yeah, I mean, you should try to keep that door closed in that circumstance for sure.
You know what I mean? Sometimes you just have to flow with it.
Yeah, it's like saying, I wish it was easier.
Yeah.
That is what causes the pain.
Rather than trying to think, how can I get stronger in this situation to handle what is coming at me?
And by the way, I think all the time I wish this was easier.
Do you?
So no, what I'm saying is like, I'm not perfect in this. Like as in, this is something that I feel like you're constantly learning this. This isn't something that I've mastered and I've perfected. It's like every time there's a new challenge, the first thing I'm like, why me?
Really?
And why does this happen to me? Like, why am I going through this? Like,
and then what are the practical things?
What did I do? Like,
Let's say you are going through a hard time in your life.
Yeah.
What are the practical things that you do on a daily basis that you're like, okay, I'm in a funk, stuff's gone wrong, life is a bit unfair right now. But then you wake up, you feel that way.
Yeah, I've got a few things.
What are you going to do?
The first thing is I remind myself of the famous quote, there's no strong person with an easy past.
Oh, that's a good one.
Every single person I admire has been through hardship, difficulty, and challenges.
Yep.
The second thing I remind myself is of the Stoic phrase, the obstacle is the way. The obstacle is the path.
Right.
This is the way. There is no other way.
Yeah.
There is no shortcut. This is the path.
The pain is part of the path.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the third thing I do is I find that being alone by myself, for me, making sense of everything is more important than outsourcing that work to 20 people on a text thread.
Yes.
So I don't enjoy outsourcing mental processing to other people because I believe it's something that I can build that muscle myself. And once I feel confident and confirmed in where I'm at, I'll share that with others. Or if I'm feeling really weak, I'll turn to someone who I believe can help me. I won't ever turn to just 20 people that I love and care about because they may just say things that sound helpful, but they don't change how I feel about myself.
It also magnifies it so much.
Yeah.
I did that recently. I had like a thing with someone that I wasn't so fond of and like had a disagreement or just was feeling a certain way about them. And for the first time, I usually process things and I don't talk about it. But I decided randomly, it came up in conversation with you and I had a chat about it with you. And then someone else brought that person up and then I had a chat about that person with them. And suddenly something that I would have forgotten about within a day became something that I was talking about every single day. And then
Such a good point.
my pain towards them became larger. My annoyance towards them became larger. My thought became larger about them. And so whether it's about, that's just a person, but it's literally the same thing that you're talking about right now. Like when something bad is happening in your life, the more you give energy to it, the more you talk to people about it, the more that you're fixated on it, the larger, it may be large, but the larger it will feel in you. It's like fear. And I feel like a lot of our pain is also linked to fear. And so the larger that you make it and the more you think about it, talk about it, act on it, the bigger it becomes and the harder it becomes to then overcome that hurdle. And that hurdle becomes something enormous where you feel like you can't even.
Yeah. The practical question or practical step is asking myself, what is the root of this problem?
Right.
Like, what's the root of it? Because we're all so distracted by the branches. This is what in my book, Think Like a Monk, I talk about the difference between the monk mind and the monkey mind.
Right.
The monkey is jumping from branch to branch, jumping from leaf to leaf, grabbing the fruits.
So cute.
The monk mind is focused on the roots. And so, yes, the monkey's cute, but it's distracted.
Monkey.
But it's distracted. And so how can I focus on the root? Let me solve for the root. And I think a lot of us get distracted by what's the latest, what's the trendiest, what's the new thing, all of that stuff. And it just distracts us away. So my practical step is, what is the root of what I'm trying to solve? What will actually get me to where I want to get to? Like what will actually get to the heart of the issue, to the root of the issue, and to the depths of the issue? Because if I don't focus on that, now I'm just distracted.
Yeah. You know, I feel like there's so much competition in life, no matter what career you're in, no matter what family you're in. Like competition is something that surrounds us so much. And, you know, we were talking about mentors earlier, and it reminded me that you often mentor a lot of people who also want to do the things that you've done. Like, you know, whether it's writing a book, whether it's being online, whatever it is. I've always admired that you really do put so much effort into sharing that knowledge with other people so that they can also succeed at it. Have you been through times in your life where you felt jealous of people, where you have felt that competitive nature? And how can someone, I'm probably asking for myself really, how can I get past the competitive nature that you feel on a daily basis in so many different parts of your life, physically, emotionally, mentally, work, family, whatever? Like, how do you do that?
The first thing I want to say, because I think competition often gets a bad rap because it leads to comparison.
I think it's a bad rap, but yeah.
Oh, sorry. No,
I'm joking.
No, give me a bad.
Is it bad rap?
Either, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I think competition gets a bad name because...
Just here to humble
because
you.
it leads to comparison and it leads to envy. And so we just go, oh, competition's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But then everyone in their head's going, how do I win?
Right.
And so here's how I look at it. If anyone's winning, they've just understood the systems and patterns better than you. That's it. And the question is, are you willing to study the systems and patterns as well as they have or better than they have? A lot of us don't want to put in that work. So we'd rather tear that person down. We'd rather point fingers, or we'd rather be like, oh, I don't want to be that popular anyway. I'm happy being me. And really all of that's coming from the angst of, I just don't want to do the work to study that deeply.
The distraction.
That's just the reality of it. That's just the truth. I've rarely seen it where it's genuine, because if it was genuinely you didn't care, you wouldn't be talking about that person in the first place.
Yeah.
So you really have to look at it, first of all, from the perspective of, anyone who is successful has just studied the patterns, the algorithms, and the systems. That is what has happened. That's just a fact. If you look at the best people in business, they understand business patterns.
Right.
If you look at the best people on social media, they understand social media patterns. If you look at the best people in marketing, fashion, beauty, they either are building patterns that become the patterns that everyone studies, or they're studying patterns. We have a choice. So knowing that it's factual and that it's studyable means, okay, now it's a matter of, do I want to do that with my time? And if someone goes, actually, I don't want to do that with my time, I want to spend time with my family, that's beautiful, that's great. But then don't expect the same result.
Right.
And if someone goes, oh, actually, I want to study that pattern and do that, then they may have to compromise somewhere else. So that's the first thing. It's just factual. It's not that emotional. Then I look at it as like, of course, I've felt envious and jealous in my life. Of course I have. I don't know anyone who doesn't feel that way. And I think, again, we've got to normalize it. It's a human emotion.
Totally.
We shouldn't judge people for feeling that way. It's very normal. We often ask ourselves, do I want what that person has? And instead, we should be asking, do I want to do what they do?
Right.
Right? Am I willing to put in the work, the effort, the sweat, the time, the hours, the miles to do what that person does? And if the answer is no, then you should accept with grace that you've decided to prioritize something else. And that's what I find. We're only envious and jealous of others when we don't know what we're prioritizing.
No.
If I stand here and look at all the other houses and what they're doing, I won't be focused on my own. And if I'm not focused on my own, I'll be more distracted by everyone else's. And so I find that if you're living in your truth, if you're living in alignment, if you're working on the things that matter to you and prioritizing them, and if success is important to you, study the patterns.
Yeah.
If happiness is important to you, study the patterns. If health is important to you, study the patterns. And so then you've got to ask yourself, in your limited time, what is your top priority?
Yeah.
And that person you're jealous of is just prioritizing that as their number one priority. And chances are what's your number one priority may be their 10th priority. There's no one in the world who has mastered everything.
Yeah.
The strongest person in the world is not the most beautiful person in the world. The most beautiful person in the world is not the richest person in the world. The richest person in the world is not the most followed person in the world. Like, those things don't correlate.
No.
Because everyone's had to prioritize and everyone's had to compromise. And so I think we spend more time in envy and jealousy when we don't know what our priority is.
Yeah.
And when we don't answer the question, what am I willing to do? And we should look at envy and jealousy as a sign of saying, do I want that?
Yeah.
And not do I want that? Do I want to do what they did to get that? Am I willing to learn that? That's the real question we have to focus on.
Yeah.
So to me, feeling jealousy and envy is normal. It will never go away. It will always be there. It's what you do with that emotion. And that emotion can be used as incredible fuel. But just make sure that you're not focused on just the outcome. You're focused on what the lifestyle
what it takes
is
to get there.
and what it takes to get there.
I feel like the times I've been most jealous in my life have probably been times where I've seen people do things that, in my eyes, make them feel happy.
Yeah.
Or like that make them happy. So for example, even if, let's say, it's a physical appearance thing, it's like, wow, that person looks so confident. And I think it's because they look that way. That's why they are confident. And so I'm like, oh, I want to look like that because it's actually their behavior of being confident that I'm desiring. Or, I know I feel like we've spoken about this with you before, but a lot of the time, even when I went to New York, I did my yoga teacher training. And I did that because I saw these two girls, Diana and Shama, my teachers then. And I was like, God, they look so happy. And like when they're teaching this, they look so happy. When they're living their life through yoga, they look so happy. And I was like, that's what I want to feel. And then to feel that means I need to do my yoga teacher training. I did my yoga teacher training and I did not look or feel how they did. And I was like, oh, I did not need to do my yoga teacher training. I did because I really enjoyed it. But that was not what got me what they wanted. And that was the same with you. I saw you were so happy with your purpose. I saw you were so determined and focused. And I was like, oh, I don't think I was jealous of you, but I was like, oh, I want that. And so I'm going to try and mimic what you've done to get that happiness. And I think sometimes we crave the emotions that we think people have from the things they're doing, and we create jealousy in our mind through that versus thinking, do I actually want to do that?
Such a great point.
Like, do I want to do that? And again, it's do the work, but also, do I want to be that person? Is that really what I want in my life? Because actually, I realized it wasn't suited to me to be a yoga teacher. And that wasn't what I wanted to do. but I did want to feel happy. I did want to feel those emotions. And so I think it's a really good mix of both of those things.
That's such a great point. I really love that. And it's, everyone envies the result. No one envies the process.
I don't think I could do your process.
Everyone envies the result. No one envies the process. Like no one's sitting there envying staying up till 2 a.m. No, I started working out a little bit recently. And if you look at like Cristiano Ronaldo, like you realize what it takes. Like when you start doing the process in the smallest way, you get so much more respect for someone. You actually don't envy them at all. And that's what I find. If you get on the path to becoming whoever you want to be,
like, damn.
You actually go, I get it.
Yeah.
Like good for you. Like I really realize how hard that is. So now when I see anyone who has a phenomenal physique, I'm like, good for you. I get how hard that is. Like that's hard work. Whereas when you're not on the path, you're kind of like, oh, I could have that if I wanted that, right? You have that chip on your shoulder. You just care too much about how you look.
Yeah.
But really, you have so much respect for someone because you know what it takes. And that applies to anything, not just that.
I remember thinking that when you used to do podcasts and when you used to do content creation, and I used to be like, oh, wow, it's like so easy. And then I started doing it myself and I was like, flipping hell, this is a full-time job, more than a full-time job. And then I started getting in the habit of it. And then I remember my friend in London and she'll be like, God, it just seems so fun what you do. And I was like, yeah, it's fun. I really enjoy what I do. And she was like, what, how many hours? Maybe like a couple of hours a day? And I'm like, no, I literally work day and night. I edit, I do this, I create, I have to think of ideas, I have to, whatever it is. And she started creating content for herself. And she was like, oh my God, this is so difficult. Like it is a full-time job. But until she actually did that, she had a perception of what it looked like versus what the work it took to actually create the 30 seconds may take 2 hours worth of filming, editing, whatever. Anyway, it just reminded me of that because that's so true. You don't know until you do it and how difficult it actually is.
Yeah, and so the practical step is turn envy into study and then apply it. Because you'll keep envying someone until you start studying them. When you start studying them, you'll actually gain more appreciation.
Yes.
And then when you apply it, you'll gain more respect.
Yeah.
So envy is transferred into respect because you took envy to study to apply.
I love that.
And so if I envy someone, my number one question is, let me start studying them. Because envy means I'm looking at them from afar. That's what envy is.
Yeah.
Envy is looking at someone from afar and wishing you had that.
Right.
Studying is looking at someone up close and realizing what they did to get there. And then applying is actually taking the steps and recognizing how hard it is.
Yeah.
And so you can turn envy to respect really simply.
I love that little roadmap you just created for us. I also feel like it's a scarcity to abundance mindset where I remember thinking in this way before in my life. And I still do sometimes where I'm like, oh my God, but there can be only one person that can do this. And if they're doing it, then I won't be able to do it. And actually, the world is so big that just because that person is making the most amazing food videos doesn't mean you can't. Just because that person is the most amazing doctor doesn't mean you can't be an amazing doctor. It's almost like we think that there's not enough. I don't know what we think there's not enough of for all of us to be able to do it. Like, what do we think is so limited that means that we are so limited in our ability that there's only one person or a few people that can do something amazingly?
In the material world, there are a limited number of VIP seats. There's a limited number of boxes. There's a limited number of security seating. There's a limited number of corporate event organization, right? Like there's all these limited numbers that have been created.
Right.
So our brain has started to believe that the theater of happiness is limited. But there are an infinite number of seats in the theater of happiness.
Yeah.
There's a seat with your name on it and there's a seat with my name on it because that's how the universe is created.
Yeah.
The universe doesn't have a VIP section. There's not a limited number of seats that are you're allowed to be happy and you're not. It's not like the universe is running out of happiness.
Sorry, we're at capacity.
Yeah, exactly. You're never going to hear that from the universe. But because we see a line out of a nightclub and we know that 50% of the room is not going to get inside. We know the bouncer's going to stop you. We know you're going to hear we're at capacity. We know we're going to hear it's sold out. It's oversubscribed.
Yeah.
The universe is never oversubscribed. The universe is never sold out. The universe always has enough happiness and joy for each and every person.
Yeah, and so we think it's a limited time only.
Yeah.
A lot of the time it's like sold out or for a limited time only.
Yeah.
So there's an expiration date on it too, on your happiness in the material world.
Yeah.
It's so true. Oh, this was a really big one that came up in my mind. And I feel me and you talk about this a lot. I think it's an idea that I have been speaking about with friends and with family for a long period of time. People's idea of material success and spirituality not being something that you can combine, that to be spiritually authentic, it means you need to be materially poor or like not materially wealthy. I would love to like have a discussion on that, because I feel like my mind shifted a lot as I've grown up about that topic of feeling like you can't be in abundance in your life and also be deeply spiritual. And I've seen people be able to do both. But yeah, I would love to hear your perspective on it, because I feel like we've churned that thought a lot as we've gone through our life.
To be honest, even when you started this and you were like, you wanted a simple life, I think we both visualized a simple
Definitely.
life. I think I've become more ambitious and driven over time. And I would say I was always ambitious and driven. I've become more believing in possibility over time.
Yeah.
But when we first met, I mean, we both decided to live right near your parents.
Definitely.
And the temple and our friends. And the goal was to live in a beautiful community.
Yeah.
Go to the temple, serve,
absolutely,
help other people. Like that was our plan. Like
really
that was my plan too. My plan, I think sometimes it's really hard to explain that to people, because people kind of feel like there was always a master plan. I would say I had no master plan.
No, you
whatsoever.
Definitely did not.
And things have unfolded as time has gone on. And so, and I grew up in a family where we didn't have a lot.
Yeah.
You know.
Shout out to Wood Green.
Yeah. And I was always happy with what we could do, but
Yeah.
Anyway, all of that to say that spirituality means living in abundance. As in, a spiritual mindset is an abundance mindset.
Yeah.
Because you've accepted that nothing is yours. Everything belongs to the universe. And so from that abundance mindset, how could scarcity ever appear? It could only be abundant. Now, I think that people misconstrue it because we've been trained for so long to believe that success is bad and that wealth is bad. And we always hear the phrase, money doesn't buy happiness.
Mm-hmm.
I don't subscribe to that statement, because I think money can solve a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that money buys happiness, but it decreases problems and certain problems.
Right.
And I wish more people had access to that. And I think it also comes from the phrase that we often hear, which is money is the root of all evil. But actually, someone told me that the full phrase is love of money is the root of all evil.
Oh my gosh, they cut off the first
part.
But
we always only hear money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
And love of money being the root of all evil makes more sense to me.
Definitely.
Because the point is, so I've always loved the monk teachings around this, that as humans, we tend to idolize or demonize everything. We either idolize money or we demonize it. We idolize fame or we demonize it. And as a spiritual person, you're learning not to idolize or demonize, but to purify and to neutralize. And you do that by using everything you have in the service of others.
Yeah.
That's the principle. And so I know plenty of people who are serving with the little they have. My parents were like that.
Yeah, for sure.
We always gave to charity. We always took care of people at our home. We always fed people. I'd say my parents gave more to charity than they spent on us sometimes. And I love them for that.
Yeah.
And I know people who have so much today who are doing so much for the world.
Yeah.
And so it's not really about what you have or what you don't have. It's about what you hold back. It's about what you do with what you have. And so I've grappled with this for a long time because I grew up believing that if you were doing good in the world, you had to be poor. But then I realized you couldn't do that much good. Like, how much good were you going to be able to do? And so I've changed my mindset about that. And I think if more people build an abundance mindset, that will impact all areas of their life. And I'd love to see a world where spiritual people, people who wanted to help others, were abundantly flowing in all aspects of their success so they could serve others. That's the reason. The reason is so you can give more.
Totally. And I think people confuse abundance with greed. And I think those two things can often get very entangled in people's mind that living abundantly or having things materially in abundance does not mean you're greedy for it. You can actually have a lot of things in your life and actually be quite detached from them. You can appreciate them for what they give you, but you can definitely be at a place where you're like, actually, even if I lost these luxuries, and even if I went back to living in the semi-detached house that I started off in 9 years ago, and I was a tutor like you were to try and date me, even if I went back to those things, yeah, it will be an adjustment. But would it change my level of contentment and joy and desire to help other people and desire to live my life with purpose? Would it change that? And if the answer is yes, then there is probably greed. And if the answer is no, then really it's a sign that you are trying to live from a place of abundance. Like you are trying to live from a place of growth and welcoming whatever comes into your life. I think I used to really struggle with that because I would never know whether to say yes or no to things which were depending on money. And I'd be like, oh, but if I say, and what I realized was like, if I say no to this, of course I had to align my values, but if I say no to this, I won't be able to give to this cow charity that I want to give to here, or I won't be able to give to midday meals how I want to, or I won't be able to eventually create this nonprofit that I want to create for whatever it is. And then when you start thinking like that and that becomes your desire, of course you're going to buy yourself things. It's just part of life. Who doesn't? Whether you have a lot or don't have a lot, you're going to end up buying things for yourself. But I think the overall mindset of what is the reason I want to create more abundance in my life is just so different.
And I think it's being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like everything you do is going to be completely perfect.
Yeah.
And there are certain things you want. There are certain comforts and luxuries and all that kind of stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. It's more about being honest and aware of what you're up to, what you're doing. You know, that's kind of how I see it. Yeah.
I feel like it's been really beautiful to have examples of that. I feel like I've seen people who live in abundance materially, but have had such incredible spiritual practices throughout their life and have really turned to God, even when they're at their peak of wealth or fame or whatever it is. And I'm like, wow, it's kind of given me hope that I'm like, if I end up living more abundantly, more materially abundantly, that there is a possibility to have both of these. And I think that that's such a beautiful desire to also have. How do you deal with criticism in your life? Because we're in a place where, Lord knows, everyone has something to say. And I find we are very two different types of personalities in our relationship. You are calm and composed in times where injustice has been done, or in times where things necessarily haven't gone the way that they should have, or when people are saying things that are actually ridiculous. And I'm like, absolutely not. I'm going to comment back and I'm going to reply and I'm going to and I'm going to do all these things. And especially when it's to do with you, because I'm like, I literally see this person every single day and this is pathetic. And so I guess my question to you is, how the hell do you stay so calm and composed in times where people are saying things that are like, say for comments or whatever, people are criticizing you, they know you, they may not know you. How do you deal with that? Because whether you're famous or not, whether you have a platform or not, criticism comes in every form. And I really struggle with that. And so what actually goes through your mind?
I remember being on a podcast a few years ago. It was on the Man Enough podcast with Justin Baldoni.
That was a great episode.
Jamie, who's Justin's co-host, asked me, what did you used to value that you no longer value?
I've seen that clip.
And I said, being understood. I said, I'm okay being misunderstood.
You really are.
And I say that because if 100 people saw something happen and you asked them all their opinion, chances are you'd get 100 different opinions.
Literally.
Now, if you ask 1 million people about something that happened, some of them were standing up close, some of them were standing right at the back, they'll all have a different perspective of what happened. If we had a mirror in this room and it fell and it broke and everyone took a different piece of the mirror home, they'd have a different reflection.
Yeah.
And a different piece and a different part. And they'd have a different perspective. I think it's more normal to be misunderstood than it is to be understood.
Yeah.
It's why we fall in love.
Right.
Because we believe that person understands us.
Yeah.
It's why we love our families or our siblings or our best friends, because we believe they understand us. It's why being understood is such a special thing, because it's so rare. If you felt understood by everyone, then you would love everyone, and then you'd marry everyone, and then everyone would be your best friend. But it's such a rare, special thing. So to be misunderstood, the more open your life is, the more scaled it is, the more expansive it is, the more natural it is for people to misunderstand you.
Right.
It would make no sense for everyone in the world to understand me, you, or anyone we know. And so, first of all, you have to accept it's just a probability exercise. Like, it's just math. It's just math.
Right.
From a mathematical point of view, chances are most of us won't be understood. So I'm happy accepting facts. I like accepting truths and facts and realities.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at
Yeah.
in life. I don't like to live in my made up world of I wish or what if. I want to live in the world
Stay in
of
your
what is and where are we. The second thing is you've got to look at the level of criticism compared to the level of knowledge that person has of you.
Right.
So if someone's criticizing something you're wearing, and sure, they have an opinion about you're wearing it in fashion and you don't know them, and that's cool. But if someone's talking about you very, very deeply, or feels like they're attacking something deeply, but they don't know you deeply, why would you take that seriously? Because they don't know you to that degree.
Yeah.
It's why when someone close to us says something hurtful, it hurts more.
Yeah.
Because we know they know us. So that means if someone's far away from you, they shouldn't have the ability to hurt you because they don't know you.
Right.
So I don't want to give them that permission. I don't want to give them that ability to do that because they don't know me. So I turn towards, and you really helped me in these moments. Like I feel you know me the deepest of anyone in my life, by far, for sure. Knowing that you love me and see me for who I am, knowing that my best friends see me and know me for who I am, knowing my teachers, my guides, my monk teachers, the people that I actually care about their opinion, that's what I turn to. And by the way, I think that's what we all have to turn to.
Yeah.
If you have a colleague at work who's criticizing your effort, only your partner knows you stayed up till 2 a.m. yesterday.
Right.
Right? If you have a boss who's always criticizing your effort, only your kids know that you haven't slept for the last 3 nights because you've been working all night. Like, those are the people that know. So how are you going to let that person have that much power over you when they don't even know, they don't have a clue?
Yeah.
And the third thing is I allow criticism to be transformed into feedback.
Yeah.
And I'm open to change. I'm open to being aware of my flaws. I'm open to being better. And so I'm not scared of reflecting and seeing where there may be a glimpse of an opportunity to change for me in that. And at the same time, the whole time I'm practicing all of this, I'm thinking, God, I wish I didn't have to deal with this.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's not fun being criticized. I hate it.
You're there
fun.
going.
I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. It's the hardest thing to go through. To be misunderstood is the hardest thing to go through. To be misrepresented is the hardest thing to go through. To be all of that is the hardest thing. I don't like it at all. But at the same time, I know it's amazing for me.
It takes way more, I feel, in those situations to abstain from saying anything than it does to reacting. Like for me, you're over there going through this process in your mind. I'm there sending people voice notes back. I'm like, well, actually, I just want you to know that I didn't actually wear a fur coat. It was fake. And you think I am actually still vegan. So I definitely need to practice that. Okay.
I also don't want to convince, I'm okay with, if someone doesn't like me or doesn't like what I'm doing or whatever, I'm actually okay with that.
I know. I said they're trying to convince
I actually
people.
I'm like, I get that. There's plenty of stuff that I don't like in the world. So I don't follow it. I don't comment.
Yeah.
I just don't follow it. Like,
I just keep moving.
It's just not that deep. It's like there's so many things in the world that I don't like. So I just don't follow them and I don't comment. I don't talk about it. But it's like, I don't think it's that crazy that someone doesn't vibe with what I do. Like, I don't find that remarkable. Each to their own. Like, there's so many TV shows and movies that we didn't like that we watched. And there's so many that we love that we watched.
Yeah, I didn't message the guy who
you
made
didn't message the guy and tell him.
I really didn't like that show.
Yeah, this is cringe.
It made me really angry.
Yeah. And
yeah, I say the best motto is just, if you don't have anything nice to say, just keep it moving, people. Keep it scrolling. Keep it scrolling. So to end, I've got some very serious questions to ask you.
Oh my God, we already did all the serious questions.
You don't have long to answer them. Okay.
Oh, so I have to answer them quickly.
How many times have you failed your driving test?
Once in the UK, twice here.
Yeah. How many times?
But let's be...
No. How many times did it take me to pass?
You did it on your first time in the US. In the UK, I have no idea.
Yeah, but we're not talking right now. How many times did it take me to pass?
What? The first time?
Why do you run stop signs?
I don't. Why is this a target of my driving?
Just asking. We're in that phase right now because he's trying to take his driving test in
I do
America.
not run stop signs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want this reputation of being a reckless driver.
This was asked actually by your team members. These are some of the questions
They've
they
never
asked
been
you.
in the car with me.
Why do you dislike talking about food so much?
I don't. I love talking about food. I just
Only
feel
if it's chocolate cake.
I just feel uneducated.
What's been your favorite hairstyle you have done this year so far?
My current hairstyle.
Nice. What's your favorite podcast?
I'm actually a reader. I don't listen to podcasts.
What's your favorite podcast? I'm asking that question again.
I'm a reader. I don't
Right.
listen to podcasts.
Didn't get the hint. What's one of your favorite books of all time?
I would have to say Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman.
Ooh. If you could go back to any day in your childhood, what day would it be?
Christmas Day.
Any Christmas days?
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
love
You love
Christmas.
Christmas so much.
Going off to watch a Christmas play,
Mm-hmm.
listening to Christmas music, making a snowman, opening gifts.
Do you want to build a snowman? Piece of advice you got that really helped you.
I remember saying to one of my monk teachers, this was when I was experiencing compassion fatigue. So I remember saying to one of my monk teachers, I feel like I give so much love out and I don't get love from those people back.
Mm.
And he said this to me and I'll never forget it. He said, just remember that the people you love may not be the ones who give it back.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people that love you that you don't give love back to.
Yeah, that's so
So love's a
true.
circle. You'll always get it back,
Yeah.
just not from the same people you give it to. And that has always made me live in gratitude because it's so easy to walk around the world and go, I'm not loved. No one cares about me. And really we're saying that because we're not getting loved back by the same people we love.
Yeah.
But there are so many people who are constantly loving on you, constantly taking care of you, constantly supporting you, but we take them for granted.
Sometimes even strangers give you love in your day. I've noticed that. What are your favorite hair care products right now?
Highland.
Yes, you've been using that a lot.
Highland.
Favorite skincare?
Dr. Dennis Gross.
Yeah, we've been using him a lot. He's a gangster. Repeat after me. A Really Good Cry is the best podcast in the world. It's just a simple exercise.
A Really Good Cry is the best podcast in the world.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on, Jay Shetty.
You can't believe you ended.
That is going to be the best promo for my podcast. Thank you for coming, opening your heart, opening your mind, opening the door to my podcast room, and just appreciate you so much.
This was actually really great.
Was it?
Yeah, it was
Have you been asked these questions before? Was I like
No,
repetitive?
you didn't ask me anything before, but also it's exactly what you said. Like I'm different when I'm with you. Like I'm just,
I think it's actually effective.
I don't share this part of me this deeply with anyone. And
I know. I really wanted people to see you.
It's very easy to lock in with you because, this is the only type of conversation we have. And you look real cute too. So
thank you so much.
Yeah,
Well, all that emotional availability stuff that we
so
spoke
much.
about is coming true now. I'm not a
she doesn't
PDA
like PDA
person, so we're going to cut it right there. Thank you so much
I
for
love you,
listening.
Radhi.
Appreciate you all, and thanks so much.
Thanks.